This is Raisa Palmer with the Homes for Toronto team with Sutton Group Old Mill. And today is October 17th, and at 12:01 a.m. today, cannabis, pot, marijuana, whatever you choose to call it, actually became legal in Canada and went on sale online. So by the time I got up this morning for work, there had been over 38,000 units or grams sold in Ontario legally online for people to be able to use. So the big question for me and for you is, as a homeowner, as a home seller, so a buyer, a seller, a landlord, a realtor, what does this actually mean and how will this impact you? Well, not all the rules have been put into place, so we are not 100% sure on everything, what's going to happen and what could it mean to you, and what does it even mean to you if you're a condo dweller or you live in an apartment? What happens if your neighbor starts smoking up every evening and the smell is getting into your condo? So I've got 5 sort of crucial areas for you to start thinking about, and we'll be doing updates as more and more regulations get put in and more rules are established, and we'll also tell you our own personal experience. So today I'd like to pull on Mark Weisleder, who is a phenomenal real estate lawyer. He is with realestatelawyers.ca, and we use him for a lot of our clients. He's one of the 3 lawyers that we recommend. And Mark had an article that was posted online, and I just want to pull from some of his points and add in some of our own commentary. One of the questions that he talks about is how many plants are actually allowed per residence. Now, per residence means per dwelling. It doesn't mean per person. So every residence is allowed to have 4 pot plants. 4 plants. So if you have 4 people, 4 plants. 1 person, 4 plants. If you have 5 people, you cannot have 20 plants. It is 4 plants per 1 person. Part of the concern and what we don't know about is that a pot plant is not grown the same way as a regular house plant. It requires a tremendous amount of lighting and a lot of water, and there is an issue with mold from the pot plant because they do produce a lot of humidity. So I don't think that there's been a lot of studies shown. We don't know the impact it will have on drywall, on plaster. It depends on how careful someone is, where they have their pot plants, where the ventilation is. So those are some answers that we don't know those are some questions we don't know the answers to. Secondly, what will the standards and rules be for growing pot plants within your home? Do you have to have it ventilated? Do you have to have good lighting? What if you have children crossing this, walking in front of your house and the pot plants are in the window? Well, right now there are no rules. There's no regulations set up by the government. Apparently for inside or for outside. So if you have babies or children in your house, what implications does that have? If you have tenants in your basement apartment and you're smoking, what does that mean for the tenant? Or vice versa, if the tenant's smoking and you have children upstairs, what does that mean? What are the rules? We don't know right now. Now, we've also heard and seen that there's some kits for sale that make pot growing or cannabis growing a little bit easier, or they give you rules to help you. I don't think any of those have been tested, so it's a buyer beware situation out there. So keep your eye out and read all the rules and look online. Third, if I, as a seller, am selling my house and I've been growing pot plants in my house and I have 4 plants that I've grown in my house, do I have to disclose that to the new buyer? The answer is we don't know yet. What's happened in the past is that if a house has been used, we're calling it a grow up. So if someone was illegally growing pot and they had a ton of plants, which would then have tremendous amounts of moisture produced, humidity, it would ruin the floors, the wall. The homes generally were not inhabitable after the fact. What would happen is we have to disclose in Ontario that house is a grow up, and the market value for that home, even if it's been remedied, so even if everything has been gutted and fixed, the value of that home will usually never be the same as the values of other comparable homes on the street that were not used as grow-ups. And because there are no rules about the remedies and about what happens and do you have to take it to the studs, do you have to scrap the house, what does it look like when it's a grow-up, and there are no rules for pot plants, we really don't know very much. So from a seller's perspective, if you have not been growing pot plants in your house, you may want to have your realtor put it into the schedule on the offer that says you certify that there have not been any pot plants growing in the house. And if you are a buyer, on the other hand, you would want your realtor to put it in a schedule to protect you, to say the seller confirms that they have not grown any pot plants in this house. Because who knows what will happen 20 or 30 years down the road, where if something is proven that it did leave chemical residuals in the walls that were dangerous to infants, or what if it was on the floor? Babies crawl on the floor, put their hands in their mouths? What if something impacted them that way? So for us, disclose, disclose, disclose. It's always better to have it on. Fourth is, my tenants are growing cannabis. I'm a landlord. What do I do? And there aren't any rules and restrictions. And as we all know in Ontario, the Landlord Tenants Act actually protects the tenant in more cases than not versus protecting the landlord. In this instance, as a landlord, what you can do is you can put into your schedule that's attached to your lease a clause that says the tenant will not grow cannabis in the unit, nor will the tenant smoke cannabis in the unit. So this will not prevent them from doing it. They still may do it. They still may smoke up a little bit. But what happens is if you catch them on an ongoing basis, if it's a condo and the condo board is being complained to and they're complaining to you and you're getting property management calls, or you have a house that you've been renting and the neighbor next door has little kids and they're complaining they can't sit outside in the backyard because your tenant is smoking cannabis all the time outside, then if you have that put into your schedule, if you go to get to the landlord tenants board to get it resolved, you actually have something to stand on. You have something that says, hey, I made it very clear to this tenant. Now, we don't know what would happen with that because it hasn't been tested in the courts yet. We don't know what the rules are going to be. So we are also trying to figure it out, but you would want to protect yourself. And how does it affect those who are medical marijuana users, who are using it because they have an illness and it helps them cope with the pain, or it helps them to eat, or it helps them with their conditions? That is another unknown for us. And fifth, condos. That is the big question. For anyone that's lived in a condo before, or an apartment building, or any multi-level unit, we have a lot of stacked condos in Toronto as well, sort of like Tetris blocks that are put together. What happens if your ventilation system isn't good? How many of you have already been in a condo unit where just with cigarette smoke, you can smell your neighbors, or it's coming down the hallway, or you walk by a door and you've smelt the cannabis smoke? What's happening right now with that is some condos are going completely smoke-free. So there's some units already that we know of here around the Lakeshore area that are completely smoke-free, meaning no cannabis, no smoking cigarettes, not even for medical marijuana, nothing, zero. You have to find another spot to do it. Others, there's buildings up closer to Yonge and Sheppard where they're governing in sort of if you're already an existing marijuana smoker, you can sign and you become a smoking condo. And we're not sure how that's going to impact sales going forward. Does that mean that smoking condos are less desirable for people because there's only certain buyers that will buy those condos because they're smoking buyers? We don't know what impact that is going to have. And other condo buildings are playing the wait and see game. They are just going to wait and see, and they're going to use their nuisance laws that if an owner or a tenant is constantly smoking in their condo unit and the unit next door or around them or below them or above them is getting the smoke and it is bothering them, then they can use a nuisance complaint and follow their procedures that are already existing that would move towards penalties and or evictions. So those are some big concerns. I know we've gotten calls already from some of our landlords and from some of our tenants and from some of our homeowners as to what is this going to do with my property value? What if the house next door, everyone sits up on their porch every night and smokes cannabis? What am I going to do when I'm selling my house and all that smoke is drifting over my way? And actually, if my windows are open, it's drifting into my house. Those and a lot of other questions are things that we do not know the answers to. Some of them we won't know until we actually get them proven in a court of law. So OREA, is the Ontario Real Estate Association, is working on or trying to work on with the government sort of 5 key mandates and points that they would like to help with this issue. 2 of the ones is a registration of grow-ops so that we have a list of those that were illegally used for grow-ops and growing houses so that we know going forward. And the second thing would be the home inspector certification. Because what if you were buying a house and the sellers that were there had plants that they were growing, or they were smoking pot in the house, but they cleaned it up right before they put it for sale? Well, what would happen to you then? So OREA is actually recommending that with that respect, that home inspectors actually get special certifications, and this way would be able to put the house through a different type of testing. So, but again, those items are all things that are in the future. So we really don't know exactly how the cannabis will be affecting our home sellers and our home buyers and our landlords, but it is an ongoing issue that we will be watching closely as new rules and new laws and new regulations come into place. We will be updating our video as well as our materials. So if you have any questions or your friends have any questions, we're here to help as much as we can. We don't have all the answers, but we will certainly share with you those things that we do have. Today is October 17th. Apparently some people are marking it with plaques and cheers and horn honkings. For me, I will be marking it by going for a nice long walk in the fresh air outside before the winter starts. So I hope you all have a great day. day, and we'll see you soon. Cheers.